If you've ever played Suikoden, you'll probably remember Gremio's big moment, a narrative payoff that will stay with you long after you roll credits on the game. But what if I told you that the mechanics and systems of the game itself reinforced this moment hours before it actually takes place? Before we continue, I have to give a fair warning. This video contains major plot spoilers for Suikoden, Final Fantasy VII, and Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. You have been warned. So who is Gremio? In order to explain what I'm getting at, we need to understand the character, firstly in a narrative and emotional context. Gremio is best friend, protector, cook, and found family to Suikoden's protagonist, Tyr McDowell. As an archetype, one can easily draw comparisons to the Lord of the Rings Samwise Gamgee and Gremio. Likewise, both Tyr and Frodo Baggins are shouldering an impossible burden, Tyr with the Soul Eater rune and Frodo with the One Ring. They both needed a stalwart companion to stay the course and help them carry some of the weight, and in Sam and Gremio, they found them. With his unwavering loyalty, Gremio proves again and again over the course of the game that he would never leave Tyr's side. From a narrative perspective, Gremio fills that role perfectly, but from a gameplay perspective, that very loyalty creates a problem for the player. You see, the Suikoden series is much lauded for having 108 recruitable characters and 6 character slots to put them in during combat. A common and fairly valid criticism of the first game is that the game simply won't let you use them all. Despite having huge potential for party customization, your choice is frequently limited by characters forcing their way into your team and taking up those valuable slots. Nowhere else is this more true than in the case of Gremio. In an approximately 20-hour playthrough, Gremio was forced into your party for about half of that time, essentially dropping you to only 5 character slots, and sometimes even less when the plot calls for yet another character to be forced in. At first, this isn't so much of a problem. Gremio was one of the main core party members at the beginning of the game, and his narrative relationship to Tyr makes him a perfectly viable character to use. But as the game progresses and many more characters are recruited into the party, something starts to stand out to most players. In terms of combat abilities and function, Gremio is quickly overshadowed by flashier, more specialised and often more efficient characters. He's not overly fast, he isn't a talented magic user, his attack power isn't exceptional, and he doesn't even have a unite attack with Tyr. He does however get a unite attack with Pan, but the game renders this mostly useless because Pan, unlike Gremio, is a character who becomes unavailable for a large chunk of the game, and depending on how the player chooses to play the game, he may never return, which again decreases Gremio's utility in combat. There are many specialist characters that outgun him on any one of those traits, and some characters that even outgun him on all of those traits at the same time. Yet, he remains in the party, dungeon after dungeon, battle after battle. The first time I played Suikoden, something very interesting started to happen. Even though I loved Gremio as a character and viewed him as a best friend, much like Tyr, eventually I started to view him differently as a party member. Every new group of recruits started to represent a missed opportunity. Another combination I couldn't see, another unite attack I can't use, another character I can't level up. Gremio was taking up their space. Now, to be clear, this is not a video about Gremio being a bad character. I love Gremio, and I suspect anyone watching this video probably does too. But I think many of us would be lying if we claimed we never felt the urge to free up his party slot to check out someone else's new unite attack or powerful spell animation. And if you've ever felt this way about Gremio, let me know in the comments, because genuinely I think this is one of the more common criticisms of the game. But stick with me, because we're nearly at the point where this starts to pay off. Deep into the game, the party suffers a defeat at Garand Fortress in all-out combat. So they hatch a plan to send a recon team behind enemy lines to understand their opposition's strategy and assess the situation. Accomplished warriors Flick and Victor both volunteer. Gremio again is willing to be at Tyr's side. But Victor begins to rebuke Gremio. He states, "Don't you get it, Gremio? Tyr can take care of himself now. He's the leader of the Liberation Army, not some kid who needs your protection." Victor here is accomplishing 2 narrative tricks. He is most obviously foreshadowing an event to come, but I think, whether intentional or not on the development team's part, he is also acting as the voice of some frustrated players who simply want to free up that all-valuable character slot. The player is even given a dialogue option in this scene that lets Tyr agree with Victor and tell Gremio to stay behind. The devs fully understood that some players would choose this option in the hopes that they could try out another character. They also made it a false choice. Gremio will come along with you no matter what option you choose. The players choosing that option were probably already imagining who they were going to bring in Gremio's place. For a brief moment, they were given the illusion of choice. The freedom to finally leave Gremio behind. Then it takes that freedom away. By the way, if this kind of gaming lore bite is the sort of discussions that you enjoy, please consider subscribing. I do intend to do more. But what happens next is where Suikoden's trick finally reveals itself. At the hands of antagonist Milich Oppenheimer's cruel trap in Sonnier prison, Gremio gets to show where his true value was all along. And this is where all of those earlier moments suddenly start to make sense. Locked in a room with the spores of agony, spores that eat human flesh, the party is faced with certain doom. Gremio, in a moment of heroism, opens a path for the party to escape, forces Tyr to safety, and stays behind to lock the door to ensure that the spores never escape the room. In a truly harrowing moment, the party, and we as the player, are forced to listen to Gremio describing his own death as he is slowly eaten alive by the spores. Much like Victor, desperately pounding at the door to try to rescue Gremio, we're forced to feel the tragic loss of our most consistent companion. For many hours, some players will have been wishing to remove Gremio from their combat lineup. We wanted to experiment with other characters, we wanted another slot, we wanted our freedom that Gremio's presence denied us, and now we have it. But not like this. The game pulls off a tragic monkey's paw scenario. It gives us exactly what we thought we wanted, but in the worst possible way. Whether or not this was a deliberate design masterstroke or a lucky collision of story and mechanics, the result is still fascinating and tragic. Victor stated earlier that Tyr no longer needed Gremio's protection, yet the only reason that any of the party survived is that Gremio protected them. What's really interesting to me about this is that in most games, character deaths are handled in the exact opposite way. Final Fantasy VII, in the most obvious example possible, spends hours ensuring that the player attaches themselves to Aerith Gainsborough. She's central to the plot, she's a romantic interest option, but she's also by far the game's strongest magic user, the most obvious choice for a healer, and for many players, the very heart of the party. When she's gone, you've lost your healer and your girlfriend. Then in Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, the game goes even further. The control scheme of the game relies on controlling two characters at the same time by using both hands on the controller to manipulate each character separately. You spend the whole time training your brain to control both, so when one brother eventually dies, the player physically feels their absence. Gremio is different. He doesn't have the fastest speed stat, the most damaging attack stat, or the most powerful magic stat. But if the game had a loyalty stat, nobody would come close. Many players will have been judging Gremio by damage, speed, or utility. Tyr was judging him by loyalty, and I think so should we. One final interesting detail that I think concludes this story is what Victor is revealed to have done later in the game. He chooses to recover Gremio's weapon and clothing, presenting them to Tyr in an act of memorial. Victor chooses to preserve the memory of the man he once dismissed. Gremio spent his life proving his loyalty to Tyr. By carrying Gremio's memory forward, Victor now honors that loyalty. So what do you think? Do you ever find yourself wishing you could free up that party slot? Or were you one of the players that kept Gremio in the party no matter what? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, you might also enjoy this Suikoden II video exploring a seemingly unimportant item that changes everything. Or, if you're more of a Final Fantasy fan, check out this deep dive into Final Fantasy VII's mysterious mechanoid creature. As always, thank you for sticking around to watch the whole video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing to the channel, dropping the video a like or a hype, and I'll see you in the next one.